So I'm Vasiliki Nikolakopoulou. I'm trying to identify myself as a mathematician, as a co-designer, and as a cultural heritage, let's say, expert. We, together with Panayiotis Koutsabasis, we will share with you a framework for co-design mixed reality experiences to enrich intangible cultural heritage in museums, which is an outcome of a collaborative effort involving a multidisciplinary design team, museum stakeholders, and communities of practice. We try to blend mixed reality with tangible interaction to revive intangible cultural heritage through a sort of enactment, not just digitally archive it or present it. We propose a four-phase framework and present one of the three case studies it was tested, the Tinian marble craftsmanship. We show how cultural authenticity is balanced through a collaborative design process, user experience through evaluative co-design, and measurable learning effect of the resulted MR museum installation. Uh, so why this matters? Why intangible cultural heritage matters? Let's see it as a comparison with tangible cultural heritage. Um, this is a photo showing the difference, but also the symbiosis of the two. At the front, we have a highly representative example of tangible cultural heritage. It's a monument. It's static inside a broader archaeological space. And at the front, we have a human, have a craftsman, um, which is alive and he's in motion. He's performing an activity. So the basic difference between the two is that the one is haptic, tangible, observable, and the other is performative, tacit, and needs other ways to be observed. And if you had expert architects, archaeologists, or surveyors in monument preservation, they would spell all the reasons why a monument is significant in terms of architecture, building process, history, and so forth, with the help of a 3D digital model. Yeah, I have a lot of animations. I don't know how will that work. But for intangible cultural heritage, this would not be enough. So intangible cultural heritage is not just data, it's practice and context. We have traditional digitization motion capture techniques that often freeze movement into digital records rather than enabling. So our stance is to shift from capturing to reenacting heritage using mixed reality and tangible user interfaces, which is the established museum paradigm, with communities in loop from the beginning of the process. We observe an evolution in co-design processes for digital cultural heritage with an increasing emphasis on participatory methods, especially from 2014, with focused works on cultural heritage in museums. And we also identify a shift in 2017 from participatory models that usually included late-stage validation with experts or users towards the inclusion of community. Nevertheless, a recent decade review identifies that the majority of such co-design projects are evaluative, meaning they're based on prototypes that are mostly designed by the design or technology experts. From the project addressed to intangible cultural heritage, only a quarter of them engage the intangible cultural heritage practitioners from the beginning, and only few are centered on intangible cultural heritage. On the other side of the global, I call it the Chinese approach to digital intangible cultural heritage. We see works that engage youngsters or the public with digital fabrication workshops, you see at the bottom, using simple interactive technology like Arduino, but outside the museum frame. So what we want is to synthesize HCI, co-design, and heritage studies into a process that centers the ICH community, Intangible Cultural Heritage community, early, uses embodied ideation, and iterates in situ. So the result is culturally authentic and feasible for museums. Okay, we draw on two influential frameworks from literature, co-design and co-designing cultural heritage in museums. The say to make model tells us this. To understand the user experience, it's the first pyramid, we follow methods to engage with what people say, think, do, use, know, feel, and dream. Those three, the later, are parts of tacit knowledge that are deeper and need generative sessions in order to come to surface. These sessions exploit methods according to the purpose and the form they serve. That is, telling, making, and enacting in iterative circles during the co-design process in order to surface this tacit knowledge. In our framework, enacting, meaning the methods focused on performance reenacted on simulation, is central. The open brief and prototype-led co-design model, which is more focused and tested with cultural heritage professionals in museums, suggests two approaches. The open brief, which starts with an open abstract brief where stakeholders engage in exploratory ideation through storytelling, brainstorming, and conceptual sketching, and the prototype-led co-design, which begins with a tangible prototype that serves as a more concrete starting point, guiding participants' feedback, refinement, and scenario development. So, our proposed framework merges the two and results in 4 phases serving the 4 design purposes we saw. Naming field inquiry, the first phase where ethnographic methods like fieldwork and contextual inquiry are combined to delve the design team deeper in the cultural context. Open brief co-design remains. It's the phase that explores design scenarios before locking to technology and interactions and uses bodily ideation methods such as body storming or role-playing between the cultural heritage practitioners, the intangible practitioners, with being the masters and the designers being the apprentices. So this phase is to produce concept maps, mood boards, storyboards, and so forth. The third, the prototype lab, starts with a concrete low fidelity prototype, and then this prototype is later staged from low to high, progressively adding layers of interaction, technology, and narrative. And standing in line with literature, we paired through this evaluative co-design phase, the last, prototype testing and focus evaluation in each prototype stage fidelity. This is an overview of the methodology for one case study, the Tinian marble craftsmanship, where we involved 3 generations of marble craftsmen, the museum staff, which is part of the local community, a design team with various expertise and users. Each phase has its core methods and basic outcomes produced. I will present the phases as a timeline, so to have a visual understanding of the framework's application. In the field study, we interviewed craftsmen, blacksmiths, quarry workers. We observed sites such as quarries and their workshops, and the museum itself, the tools they use, the rhythms, their lives, their lives unfold. I stayed there for more than 10 days. The museum administration is the one you see with the blacksmith, acted as a gatekeeper for us, enabling trust and access to all our interviews and face-to-face communication with the craftsmen. And that phase helped us prevent tech-first biases and revealed what should not be simulated to the final installation. And that was the carving virtuosity. So we searched for another medium. In the upper brief of design, we saw that the crane emerged as a culturally regional anchor. It coupled intangible teamwork, meaning aspects of the craftsman heritage, their working culture, their common effort, and the dependability of each other's working expertise. And we paired it with a tangible machinery, which sits on the front of the museum and ties to community narratives. And for us, it acts like an ideal combination for mixed reality and tangible user interfaces. This tangible machinery also needs to sit inside the virtual quarry, and workers need to use it, virtual workers. So the prototype-led co-design began with a proof of concept, a low-fidelity prototype to guide the ones that followed. Internal meetings with the design team took place, reflecting on how the cranes and its mechanics work based on the workshop we had with the museum engineer. The engineer showed us how the crane works through a workshop for its maintenance. So where we have, putting an intangible in people's hands changes the conversation. That is why we first gathered users in the lab, and then we tested in the museum, also recruiting visitors, where the community and a team of experts provided feedback on the crane's rope behavior, gear rations, and visual cues. I'll tell you what all this, because we wanted more. We wanted a more detailed model. I don't know if that was okay at the end. We can discuss it about this later. And as the setting for the model was preparing the tangible model, motion capture for authentic worker postures were prepared, as well as simple sonic cues like whistles and forging. So similarly, the third prototype was tested in the lab with two key interface corrections. It was installed at the museum for the field study in a 2-month period. The user experience questionnaire was positive on all scales. Perspicuity initially lagged, but after the interface changes, it rose again. The learning scores to see how visitors understand the working of the cranes inside the quarry and its mechanics itself, in a pre-post learning quiz with the same questions, especially it rose, especially in questions on crew roles and rope function. From usage patterns, children mastered controls faster than seniors. Seniors wanted instructions in order to understand what they have to do. And an interesting pattern, a visiting pattern we observed was the shadow learning, where standing visitors or other family members learned how to use the crane by watching their peers. So I'm moving forward to design implications. Layer tangibility. That means that the installation generated a mixed reality environment where the user's interaction with the visual world was mediated in real time. This pairing with the graspable prop offered visitors an embodied hook, we can say, into complex cooperative working practices. The crank was the first hook that they all understood. Then the gears became more complicated. So designers tackling other domains, intangible cultural heritage domains, might similarly anchor virtual cues to something the body already knows, such as a gesture, a posture, a beat. For layered storytelling, the interactive exhibit included cultural content like the workers, their roles, their clothing, with learning impact, as we saw, embedded in the physical virtual narrative, this duality, and never presented as isolated facts. So similar applications could look for such physical visual couplings components to expose implicitly the cultural content. We understand that using off-the-shelf sensors, publishing developed software, open source, and training a museum staff, it can ensure longevity. And finally, we need more metrics to be paired with user experience questionnaire metrics that has to do with cultural value, like cultural presence, cultural awareness. Yeah, the framework has some limitations, and the study itself has its limitations. The framework is centered on craftsmanship. For the study, the sample sizes for the learning test, for example, were modest. There were only 31. And we didn't test longitudinal impacts on heritage appreciation. So the framework, since it is centered on craftsmanship, cannot be generalized for all ICH cases. So material and animal-centered forms such as traditional dances and islanding beekeeping have also not just minerals, to see more animal-centered forms paired with craftsmanship. And and testing further input interfaces such as audio and haptic, and the generating AI feedback for accessibility, like controllers vibration patterns or spatial audio narration for wayfinding. I don't know, just some ideas. So thank you all. And what was inside? Thank you very much, Vasiliki. Any questions?
Thank you. Congrats on the work. Let me phrase this. I was hoping for more intangible aspects of it, because I saw like more like the motion capture, etc. I feel it's important within the context of intangible or living heritage, but uh, I feel that it's more. There are more rich aspects building on this. It's necessary, but have you thought about capturing these aspects?
Like dances, or in this
In this
paradigm,
context, yes, in this.
in this paradigm, for
Yes.
example, we
Thank you.
capture how they carve the marble, right? Yes. Yeah, but that was uh, that would be, yes, yes. The idea was to first have this approach, but for them it was like diminishing a craft that takes years to master. So we all understand now as researchers, as a preservation, yes. So we can capture it, digitize it, and preserve it in formats, in digital formats. This is what we try to overcome, to use this type of formats in order to give the opportunity to the visitor to understand something that might she appreciate on this effort, on this collaborative effort, for example, that in the in the quarry, and how the crane worked. The fact that they were in teamwork, though, it was something that we understood when we got and spent time at the field. You know, we all think about craftsmanship, and it's a very important craft. You saw the craftsman in the Acropolis. This generation of craftsmen try to copy, let's say, the ancient craftsmen. So it's not only about carving. They have a special relationship. As much as the craftsman is invaluable, so it's his blacksmith and his quarry worker. So this was the other approach after the ban we had from the from the carving resort. Let's not take another question. We will. I have plenty to say on that, so we'll definitely have an interesting discussion later. Thank you very much.